Hi, and welcome to the Letter S podcast. My name is Joe Gross, and I'm joined by Anina Jasper Brody, who, like myself, experienced the loss of a parent at a young age. In this series, Anina and I will be sitting down with individuals from all ages and backgrounds, each having experienced the loss of a parent. Join us as we delve into their unique journeys, exploring how they've navigated challenges and found motivation to lead positive, meaningful lives. Together, we'll uncover inspiring stories and valuable insights that can enrich our own paths. I invite you to join us on our journey to spread awareness and hope to those seeking a community and happiness in their lives. Thank you, Tova, for enjoying the intro music. I really appreciate it. I made it myself.
Oh, really?
No, I actually didn't.
Okay.
Joe's a DJ, if you didn't know.
I didn't know.
Yeah, it's some of my hidden talents. So if you ever need one, Tova or Anina, feel free to reach out. So as you guys know, this is another episode of Letter S Podcast. I'm joined by my co-host, Anina.
Hi, everyone.
And today we're going to be talking with Tova.
Hi, I'm Tova.
Tova, thank you so much for coming on. And already we're so excited to hear everything you have to share with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we love to have you here. So Tova here is 22 years old. She's from Teaneck, New Jersey. Teaneck's a great place. Her mother, Dr. Elaine Riemann Zichron Livracha, Eileen, passed away when she was 19 years old, and her mother was 59 years old at the time. After her passing, Tova went to seminary at Machon Mayan for a year. She graduated Stern Honors and is now in Wurzweiler Graduate School of Social Work in the Block program. In just a few weeks, God willing, she will be getting married and then making Aliyah right after.
Mazel tov.
Thank you.
To both Mazel Tovs.
Yes, that's what I was referring to.
Good, very good. That's very exciting. Wow.
Yeah.
What's more exciting, the getting married or the Israel part?
I mean, obviously getting married, but also Israel. Both are so incredibly exciting, but obviously I've been dating Ezra for 2 years, so it's about time.
Where do you plan on living in Israel?
So Bezrat Hashem, Yerushalayim.
Very
Hopefully
so
we're
nice.
looking at apartments at Baca, Katmon. If anyone knows of any apartments, let me know.
Anyone listening to his podcast?
Yeah.
Shout out to Tova.
Yeah.
Yeah, both very good places. I've been to both. Very nice. Emek is beautiful.
I'd my dream is just to just go get a little cute coffee, just walking down, get some flowers.
You're loving it.
Very vibey.
So movie type of vibe.
Yeah,
it's a
just
beautiful
the
day
main
out.
Character, just walking around sipping my iced coffee.
Everyone's smiling at you.
Yeah.
Someone might just give you $100 too on the street.
I mean, I wouldn't say no.
Right? Best place. I love Israel. Big fan. So, segueing into what we're going to be talking about today. This podcast is called The Letter S because everyone involved has experienced the loss of a parent, which transforms the word parents into the singular word parent. The extra S in parents can be a struggle for many people. What does the letter S mean for you?
The letter S is just sort of awkward. What do I say? If it's at a Shabbos table and, someone's quickly, asking me a question, they don't really want to hear, my whole story, or it's just not the time. So I'm I just go along and lie and say, oh, yeah, parents, I grew up in Teaneck and parents, whatever. So it's just awkward. I never really know what to do. But again, if I feel the moment is right and, it won't be in an awkward job as everyone's introducing themselves, I try to be very open about it. I try to be very open as much as possible.
Right, it's about finding that balance of when's the right time and when's not. It's a awkward type of thing to bring up.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of why we're here. We're going to, be bringing up a little bit more so people feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
But it's a challenging part, and I've definitely felt over my times that there's the right time to say it in the right place. but also, it could be awkward and people might take it, the wrong way, and you don't want that. That's the last thing that you want from them. But it's an interesting point that you got to be able to, find the right time that you've tried to see.
Yeah.
I always say that it's not like an icebreaker. Like, hi, my name's Anina. My father passed away when I was 8. Like, no one. It's one time I actually did that when I was little. I used to go to acting camp. Not my proudest moment.
Not anymore.
No.
Not anymore, thank God. But I was telling a kid that my father passed away. I must have been 10, and he said TMI. He literally said TMI, and I was like, oh, like, and I think that was kind of my moment where I was like, oh, like, not everyone, and I think that's like a very off way to react to something like that, but not everyone's going to have the reaction that you want. So I think thinking about it and not saying it at a Shabbos table when you don't want to be the center of attention or whatever, I think it's important. But I also think it's important to say, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I do hear that. Like, Baruch Hashem, I have amazing friends, and like they know that I make jokes all the time. Like, like at first it made them uncomfortable. I was like, this is just like a part of me. Like, I just make these jokes. Like,
Right.
it's okay. Like, laugh. Like, I'm telling a joke. They're meant for you to laugh. So, like, is it okay? Like, I don't even know what to do when you do it. It's like, you're good.
Yeah, that happens. I'm like, I think when this podcast started, I like joked about it a bit more, and I would like joke about it, and my friends would be like, and like, what? And I'm like, no, guys, like, it's good. But yeah, people are definitely uncomfortable with the jokes sometimes.
Yeah, and I definitely hear that, but also I want them to understand my personality and that it's okay and that you should laugh because I'm a funny person, because
Yeah.
I am. Tova, I'm sure you're very funny.
I mean, I'd like to think so. But
Do you have any of those jokes you want to share? If not, it's totally okay.
I was at a Shabbos table with one of my friends, with like a whole group of my friends actually. Oh, my friends who will probably listen to this afterwards and know exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm excited for that.
So I forgot how was the topic of conversation, but like everyone was like talking about like, oh, their moms and whatever, and I was like, being silent, whatever. And like one of my friends was like, I feel like we all just have some great Jewish moms, and I like said under my breath, I'm like, not me. And my friend who was sitting next to me heard me and like spit out her drink in the middle of the Shabbos table. And like she was like, oh my God, what did you just say? And so she made me repeat it. And we were at my friend's house, and her parents actually knew my mom, and they were like, oh my God, are you okay? I was like, no, it's funny, don't worry. So that was really awkward, but like I don't regret it at all. It was worth it.
That's funny. And I like how you don't regret it.
No, I don't regret it. It's also, as much as like you don't want to make people feel uncomfortable, like this is an uncomfortable topic, and you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And
Right.
like, desensitize people to this, and like people are allowed to make jokes about what they're going through.
Also, it's not going away. Like, unfortunately, like,
Yeah.
this is our fate, and one of the goals of this podcast is to make light out of that and bring awareness to people who don't know what it's like. But yeah, this is the cards that we were dealt, and it's not going away. So we joke about it. That's what we do. Some people can't handle it, but some people joke about it.
And of course, try to take the most out of it.
Yes, of course, that also.
What was the process like of going through with, what happened with your mother? And if you can recall any stories from it.
So my mom passed away completely unexpectedly. She had a procedure done at the hospital, and I don't know how much, I'm not going to go into so much detail, but she was fine when she came home, and then Shabbos morning, obviously she wasn't. I remember it was just like it's like a fog, really. I went like phases of like crying, and then just like sitting there and not being aware of what was going on. Though I do remember most things that happened, it's still just like a fog over everything. Like, right. I can't remember mostly what people said or anything about anything like that, but it was like the hardest day of my entire life. I loved my mother. hopefully, I mean, everyone loves their mothers, but my mom was like my best friend. Um, she knew me better than anyone else on the planet, and probably better than I knew myself. And to lose like the constant support to lose her, the constant support I had from her, it was devastating, and I couldn't feel anything for a while. I would either be crying or not feeling anything, and that lasted for a while, and then I decided to go to seminary. My mom was really, really pushing for me to go to seminary, and I wanted to go. And I as much as I was worried about going, I knew like that I wanted to go. That there was something I needed to do there, and I remember it was still like sort of COVID. So one of our teachers met us at the airport. And he's like, "Oh, what's your name?" And I said my name. And like the first thing he said to me is like, "Oh, I just wanted to say on behalf of all the staff, I'm so sorry to hear about the loss of your mother." And that for me, like, just like opened the doors. I was like, no one was sugarcoating it. Everyone was just saying how it is. Like, yes, your mother passed away. I'm not gonna like hide behind and like talk about niceties and like, I'm so sorry for the loss of your mother. And that for me, like, really allowed me to open up during that year to so many teachers and friends, make friends, and learn about myself. And yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I think that's, amazing that people were able to understand what you were going through and not make it, much of a bigger thing than it has to be, but that they truly resonate with what you're going through and are there for you, and that opened the door for you. So I think that's amazing that you're able to do that.
Yeah.
How long after your mother passed away did you go to seminary?
So my mom passed away at the end of May, and I went to seminary in September.
How was leaving after? I mean, you were still in your year of Avelus, yeah. And how was that leaving? How was that? You mentioned how your mom really wanted you to go to seminary and really was pushing that. But can you walk us through a little bit about that decision, how it was leaving, and then obviously being away for a year?
Yeah. So I was living in my mom's house, like me, my mom, and my brother. And so, I mean, even thinking back now, I don't know where I would be if I would have stayed home that year in my mom's house, just alone. Like, I honestly don't know where I would be. And to go away was like, it was a much like needed escape, because I wasn't constantly facing the memories of going everywhere. I've lived in Teaneck for almost all of my life. And so like constantly like going to the pizza shop, walking down the block, going to a park. Like I had memories with my mom everywhere. In Israel, I didn't have memories of my mom on Mohamedan's beautiful campus.
Right.
So it was like a fresh start, and I didn't have like constantly like battling those memories. So that was really nice. It was really needed. But I was unsure if I wanted to go. Although my mom wasn't here, like my support system is here, family, friends, my dad, everyone was here. But I still wanted to go, I didn't want to let like my mother's passing not let me go to seminary. I was supposed to go the year before in 2020. That was the year I was supposed to go, but I didn't because of COVID.
Right.
And so I stayed home for an entire year doing Stern online. I did not have a good time at all, and I was dying to go to seminary. And my mom passed away, and I couldn't give that up. So I went.
So you mentioned that, first of all, thank you for sharing all that. And you mentioned that when you were in Mahomayan, it was a whole new scenery. And then when you came back to Teaneck, how was that for you, walking the footsteps that you walked with your mom not so long before?
It was really hard. It was like, Israel was a great escape, but like you have to obviously go back to reality at a certain point, and it was really, really hard. Just like every inch of your house, you have memories. So it took a long time to get used to. I don't know if I'll ever fully, be comfortable in that house.
Right.
Yeah, it was really hard.
Do you feel like your role changed over time since your mother passed away and you had to take a different step in your family and take care of others or other people take care of you?
For sure. I mean, my parents were divorced, and I was living in my mom's house. I would see my dad on the weekends and during the week, but I didn't, all of a sudden I was taking care of me and my brother. We were taking care of finances. We were, you know, like, we had mice in the basement, and all of a sudden I had to, call an exterminator and set up a time for them to come over and then fill out an invoice. I had to figure out how to get a credit card because I was using my mom's credit card. I had to set up a bank account. I had to do all of these things that I had no idea how to do. When someone passes away, there's also estates and really, really overwhelming stuff that no one should have to deal with, especially not kids. And it was so overwhelming. Baruch Hashem, I have the most amazing neighbors and community members in Teaneck. I'm gonna tear up.
It's okay.
They really, from day one, and not all of them knew us beforehand, but from day one, I would call them when I needed them. They would invite me over to their house for Shabbos, for during the week, dinner. One of my neighbors in particular, he became our everything person. He had the phone number for the exterminator, for the gardener, for the water guy, for the AC guy, for literally everything. And my community really helped us, incredibly.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very powerful. And would you call them some type of mentor that you've had throughout the years? Do you still keep in touch with them? Are they still, a big part of your lives?
My neighbors are a big part of my life. I mean, one of the first, my fiance Ezra, one of the first things he said was yeah, you have to meet my family. You also have to meet my neighbors because they're like my family.
It's so nice.
That's amazing. Yeah. Having a community really behind your back for everything.
Yeah, we have a chat. The street I live on is called Churchill, so we have a Churchill chat with all the moms. We text on there and stuff. It's great.
That's really amazing.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about your mom with us so Joe and I and everyone listening to the podcast can hear a little bit about her and who she was, some of the things she accomplished, so we can get a better sense of who we're talking about?
So my mom was a psychiatrist, a very, very well-known and established psychiatrist. She had her own private practice in Central Park West. She didn't grow up religious. She grew up in Fair Lawn and became religious when she was in Einstein in medical school. She was my role model in everything. She, her upbringing was obviously difficult in that, her parents, it was difficult. My entire side of my family is, not as religious as me and my brother are, so it was difficult, I'm sure, for her. But she was kind and corny and so smart, so smart. Another hard thing that after she passed away is I had to start paying attention to what doctors would say to me when I would go for appointments. I never had to think about it. My mom was talking about different things. I was in La La Land, and suddenly my doctors were talking to me about going to a pharmacy. I was oh, my mom did that. She would figure all that out. She she was a single mom, had a house, dog, car, Two car. Like she did it all. She really did it all, and did not complain. She worked so hard. You know, it's hard thinking back and, you know, hearing my little self, you know, just saying, oh, Ema, why can't you just spend more time and do this and do that? But, like, I had no idea half of the things that she was doing and dealing with.
I think that as we grow up, I mean, at least I can speak for myself, that I realize how my younger self didn't realize how much my mom and my dad, when he was alive, took on, and how I like was a little bit like living in a selfish world. So I was like, oh, like isn't your only job to like be like caring for me? And like obviously like it wasn't. But I think that what you're saying of saying like, oh, I wish, realizing now how much she did, I think it's something that happens as you grow up, because when you're younger you don't really like think about it, but then when you're older, like you grow up and you like are more aware of things.
Yeah, your parents suddenly become like actual people.
Yeah, you're like, oh, like your only job isn't to like make sure that like I'm happy.
They're superheroes, as they say.
Superhumans. That too. Okay.
Yeah, that works maybe a little bit better.
Yeah.
You spoke a little bit about your mom. Have you taken on any of those attributes that she had? Like you mentioned, you know, corny, and you mentioned the jokes in the beginning. Is that something that you...
I do like to joke around. Ezra can attest that he thinks I'm not funny, but I am very funny.
Great way to start the marriage off.
So, you know what? He likes my jokes. I know. I would say that I'm very competent, like her. You know, I'm also stubborn. My mom always said I'm stubborn as a mule, and every time she said that, I was like, I could say the same about you. You know, she did things. I read somewhere like the curse of being competent is not being able to deal with people who aren't. So like, when you know that like you can do something, it's like hard to like give tasks to other people, because you're like,
right.
I could just either do it better, or like it's gonna cause me like so much time and energy to like explain it to another person. I might as well just do it. So
exactly.
But I think that makes me very competent, and I know how to do things, and I'm a fast learner. I love helping people, mainly because my entire life my mom was helping people. She worked with adults, adolescents, and even kids, but she specialized in eating disorders, which is one of the hardest, I would say, mental disorders. And she worked. It was like it was her passion, and I mean, like, my entire life, you know, on Purim, we would have her patients literally send us like huge, lavish, like mishloach mano and thank you cards all the time that she like kept on, like, in my house. We have in my house letters upon letters from patients writing to her about how meaningful and how like she saved their lives, and I just grew up with that. Even now, like, I have sometimes just randomly, like, I'll meet someone who knew her, and they're like, oh my God, like, you're Dr. Eileen Rieman's daughter. And it's like the best feeling, like knowing that like I saw my mom as a superhero, but like other people also saw that.
I think one of the biggest honors is meeting someone even this many years later, being like, I knew your dad. I sat for me, like, sat next to your dad in shul. Like, it's been 12 years and like people are still coming up. I think that that's like a everlasting thing, that like will always be new people who knew your parent and say things to you. I think it's very cool and interesting.
I think it's also that, you know, you saw your parents in a certain way, but like I would love, one of the main, like during Shiva, I would encourage people who were there to like speak and tell stories of my mom, because I know my stories of my mom, but like she interacted with other people, and I want to hear all about that as well. So to have people come up to me and like tell me stories about my mom, like it was like so valuable. It was precious to me.
Yeah, I get that a lot also when people are coming up and telling me stories about my father. And it's always an interesting situation, though. It's because you're telling me, an amazing story about my father and his past, and you kind of just stand there and you acknowledge it, and of course you take it in, and you also don't really understand how to respond to them. You don't have a good response for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it
Like, what do you say back? Like, oh, thank you. And then I guess that's it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Bye.
But it's something I've actually been trying to figure
That's
out what the right response is for, and I haven't been able to do that. Do you have any suggestions for that?
I just say like thank you. That really means a lot to me. Thank you for sharing. I don't think there's anything else.
Yeah, that could work.
It's funny. It feels awkward. Like, oh, thank you.
It is.
It's awkward. I think I when that happens to me, I'm just like, thank you. But I also feel awkward when that person's saying, like, even before I respond, I just like feel awkward. I don't really know why. But it's a really interesting question. Thank you, Joe, for asking.
No problem.
So, is there someone that you speak to, a mentor, a psychologist, that either before your mom passed away or now that she has passed away, is there someone you speak to?
Yeah. So I saw a therapist before my mom passed away, and I continued with her for a while, and like, I invited her to my wedding. Like, she really, really helped me tremendously. I had no idea what like the 5 stages of grief were, or like anything like that. Everyone always brings it up. We're like, oh, I feel like someone one time asked me, like, what stage are you up to? I don't know.
Don't ask people that.
No, do not ask people that.
Yesterday was 3, tomorrow's 1, maybe
Yeah.
back to 5.
Yeah.
It's like, actually, it's very fluid. Yeah, no, she really helped me so much. And it was also like, one of the main things is I was very hard on myself. So to really like give myself a lot of grace and just say, look, like, you've been through hell and back, and like, if you need to take time and you need to either like be off the grid, you need to like let out your anger and like in a controlled way, you have to do something. Like, it's okay. Give yourself like rahmanas. So that was something I had to learn.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's very important to find a way, find something outside to get yourself regrouped. Whatever it is, you find that something that can help you, get through this challenge and the next one and the next one. But that's a good method to have.
Yeah.
Because you're living and you're going to continue to live, but also you have this huge tragedy that happened in your life. And it's like, how do I keep living and how do I make the most out of my life? But also, like, one of the questions could be like, what's the line between carrying this tragedy with me and also continuing to live my life? Because I'm sure you seem like an amazing person and someone who's going to accomplish a lot in life. And even though, unfortunately, your mom passed away when you were young, that's not, God willing, not going to stop you from accomplishing all the amazing things that you're going to accomplish. And the same for us. Like, this thing happened, and now what? Right?
You said that you're so hard on yourself. Would you say some of that's because you want to express your mother in the best way possible? You feel like you have to bring some sort of reputation? Is that part of the reason?
I don't think so.
Do you ever think about it?
Not really, because I never felt pressure from my mom to be anything other than myself. Like, really. So to feel that like I had to act a certain way to like as a reputation, I never really felt that. Which I think is great. I try to be as much as myself as I can, and also, as you were saying, Anina, like, for a while it was my whole life. Like, my mom, like, for the weeks following and even a couple months, like, every second I wanted to bring up my mom, and sometimes I did, and people would like make a face or something, but like I didn't care because it consumed me. But slowly, like, I like to think about grief as that, it's always inside of you, and like, it's like you know, let's say like there's a rock and there's a balloon around it. So the rock is like the grief, and it's like all consuming of that balloon, and you're the balloon, and it's all consuming. But like as time goes on, the balloon gets bigger, you get bigger, you have more life experiences, you meet new people, you make more friendships, time moves forward. So I don't think the grief changes size, but it changes size and perspective of you. Because you grow up and you move forward. You don't move on, but you move forward.
Yeah. It's a really good Marshall, and it's really good. I have a friend whose friend just lost their father recently, and she was with me when she found out, and they're like also family friends, and she was very, very upset. And there's a whole like category of like how do I react in that situation, which we don't have to get into right now. But she was saying like she's never gonna be okay. Like she's never gonna be okay. Like this is her life now, and like she's never gonna get over this. And I literally was like, listen, like I was that person. And obviously I think that like when you're, and anyone listening to this also, like if you just lost a parent, it doesn't feel right away like, oh, like I'm gonna get over this, I'm gonna overcome this like huge obstacle. But then like, okay, time passes and you think about it, but you do continue to live, and you don't sit and cry all day. And crying's okay, but you're not gonna sit and cry all day. You're like, you won't, I promise. Believe that, Derek.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing point. And like you brought up, Tova, you felt like you need to be yourself. That's what it's important about, that your mother would want you to be yourself too. And that it's important to tap into yourself and find your true self. A lot of self, but find yourself and really be your true self is what's really important. So I definitely admire that piece of you.
Yeah. No, it's for sure, like I needed the time to like be, be everything, because it was, my mom was like everything to me, but eventually you just gotta pick yourself up. Eventually, when you feel like you can, when you've gained enough strength. Life moves on, like the world keeps spinning, time keeps going forward, and you can either stay in place and sit down and cry forever, or you can just slowly like crawl and get back up.
I think that the way that Judaism does the whole mourning and loss and the year of Avelut and Shiva and the funeral, all of that, I think, at least I feel that it's very good, and like it makes sense, and it's very sensitive. I think that it's not like, okay, this person passed away and now you're going back to work the next day.
I don't understand how.
Yeah, I don't know how.
You can't explain it to me.
Yeah. I think that Judaism, like, thank God, BH, that, like, we have that whole system, because it's very important. Even, like, yurt sites, which we would love to get into. Like, once a year, obviously you could think about them. You should. But once a year, like, just stopping and being like, all right, like, this is how many years it's been. And Yisker, all those things, I think they're very important.
And taking a day to not commemorate, but also celebrate the life of the loved one that you lost is important.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it hasn't been that many yurt sites. It's had 3.
Right.
But I actually don't particularly like them. I feel like it's a day of a lot of pressure. I don't like going to visit my mom, because it just like really emotionally drains me. So when a day where I feel pressure to like go visit my mom and to do something sad, like I'd rather at this point remember my mom in a happier way. And when that day rolls around, the weeks before, I feel like just dread. I really don't like it. I know it's very meaningful for some people, and I hope one day for it to be more meaningful, and for me to be able to make it a lot happier. But for now, I think of my mom every day. Every day.
So how do you cope with that when those tough times come around for Yisker yard site?
like I'll start getting in a mood. I'll start getting in a mood and, just getting anxious or angry about something. It's not important. And then I'll realize, like, oh, it's coming up. Like, my body sort of knows or something. And there's nothing to do. Just, like, my life motto after, and still today, after my mom passed away, is just one day at a time. Like, that's all we have. Like, you're not guaranteed tomorrow. You're not guaranteed the next minute. Just, like, right now, just today. And so, to worry about the year sight when it comes. But try my best to, like, live my day and do my day like I would otherwise.
It's an important value to have, even if you haven't lost a parent, to one day at a time. I don't know. On my notes app, I don't know if Joe saw this because he knows my iPad password now. But
Share with everyone, why not?
oh, all right. Maybe next time. On my iPad, in my notes, like pins, it says like one day at a time. And I like wrote that when I was in Israel for the year because I would always put so much pressure on myself. Like, I have to do this. I have to be at this point by this point. But it's not. And I think losing a parent reminds you of that more because you understand that time is very valuable and you really don't know when, especially for both of you whose parents died very suddenly. Like, you just don't know what the next day is going to be. And I think that for anyone, one day at a time, like, most important lesson, one day at a time. Put it on a sweatshirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very important. Very, very understanding when people hear these stories to really take one day at a time that you really don't know, like you said, what tomorrow brings, if there is a tomorrow, and that you live every moment and every second of your life with as much as you can. You give it your all. It's important to make those long-term goals and think about the future. However, it's more important to take one step at a time and understand that each day is a gift from God and that you should take it with as much as you can.
And that's what Modani is. Okay.
True. No, very true.
Is that something that's very important for you to wake up every day and you think about Modani very strongly? I feel something towards it too, for sure.
I guess I haven't thought about it, but I guess, yeah. I do make a point to, like, say it every morning. Yeah, I don't know. I actually hadn't noticed that.
Well, maybe now.
Yeah, I know. Now I'll be like, this is why.
Learn
Very
something new.
Machmir on your Modani now.
Yes.
Learn something new every day.
One thing I did actually want to say, when you were saying about, like, the Jewish mourning process and everything, I'm very passionate about that, actually. For my senior thesis, I wrote about, like, the Jewish mourning process and how it is so special and unique and so incredibly helpful and, does so much for a person who's in mourning. And so that's just, like, something I wanted. It's like, even, like, going through the different halachos and, like, actually analyzing them, not even, of course, like, halacha is halacha, but, like, even, like, hearing psychologists today, like, halacha was way before its time. Like, now psychologists are like, oh, yeah, that actually makes sense. I'm like, yeah, no duh. So, yeah.
I have a book to tell everyone about, you guys, and the podcast, obviously. Consolation by Rabbi Norman Lamb. It's about, he also wrote one, like, Jewish Guide to Mourning, but, like, yeah, it's really good. My rabbi told me to get it last year. It's really good, and it talks about mourning, and it also just talks about, like, grief, and I just think that, like, it's an important name to throw out, yeah.
On the topic of Judaism, as something so challenging and difficult came upon your life, has this altered your relationship with God and with Judaism, where did you have a sense of anger towards God and how that kind of went on to your year in seminary?
For sure, I was really angry. My relationship with Hashem was really not great beforehand, I will say. I didn't really feel connected. I don't think I even knew if I wanted to be religious when I grew up. And then my mom died, and for a while, just as I said, like in a haze. But then I was really angry, and eventually, what I realized is like, you can only be angry at something if you recognize that they're there. So that was like a really powerful moment when I was like, being angry is a relationship. Like, what is the quote? Like, the opposite of love is indifference, not hate, because hate, you still have a relationship and it's still like passionate. And I had so much I wanted to say to Hashem, and I did. And like, but I also know that like, as much as Hashem was like the one who did this, like, I can't understand a reason, and I'm not going to. If I did, I would be Hashem, and frankly I don't really want to be Hashem, because that sounds like a lot of pressure.
A lot of work.
But it took me a long time to just, I was sort of okay with that, but now I can say that like, Hashem has a plan. That's it.
But it's also important to do our stylus, our effort in that plan, of course.
For sure. No, we definitely have to, serve Hashem and to do all the mitzvos. And I definitely like needed to give myself like grace period, and I didn't daven for a while. But like slowly, I felt it. There were moments where I just felt it was time to take on something new again. It was time to do this. It was time to do that. And I found a lot of meaning. Because you realize how special and precious life is. And I think I sort of took that for granted. And it brought meaning to like everything I was doing. I try and make my days and do things and do mitzvos, davens, and serve Hashem as much as I can, because that is our shtalas, and that is what we're meant to do. And I also love talking to Hashem. I feel like I did that so much.
Going back, like backtracking only a little bit about when you said when you're angry at something, like it means they're there. And I think that that's a really important thing to remember, that sometimes people are so angry at Hashem and they're just like, hey, so I'm going to rebel and I'm not going to daven, I'm not going to keep Shabbos, I'm not going to do all these things. And you saying, like, I was angry at Hashem, but I realized that he was there and I had things to say to him. Like, my father, Alav Shalom, had a very difficult relationship with Hashem. In his book, David's Journey, that's on the table, like, he like, had a very difficult relationship with Hashem. But he davened 3 times a day, and he always, like, he yelled at Hashem all the time, but he acknowledged that he was there. And I think that it's an important thing that you said, that you knew he was there and you had things to say to him. It doesn't have to be, I love you, Hashem, all the time. It could be, I'm really mad at you right now, and like, I'm pissed off. Like,
no, that's very important.
Yeah, I think it's that's why I got, like, so, like, riled up, because it's not talked about enough, that just because you're mad at Hashem doesn't mean you have to rebel. Talk it out, like, just as if you were mad at a person, like, talk it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's how relationships are made. That's how they're built. You talk about everything.
Yeah.
Good or bad. That's how you get through things. That's how you build relationships to be as strong as they can be.
Yeah. So as you've been through a lot of difficulty, do you think that difficulty builds character? Can you tell us an example from your own life where you saw this firsthand?
A place where I saw it, I guess for a while I felt, sometimes I still do. I feel like I'm sort of matured a lot. I mean, I definitely have. You mature, I think, a lot fast. Most people our age are not, thinking about life and death so much, and, really contemplating these big ideas until, like, seminary or yeshiva. But, like, I was like I like dove into everything as soon as I got to Israel, and I was like, I need book recommendation, I need this, I need that, like I need to like, I had things that like pressing questions, and I felt very mature, and I think I am, that it's really made me able to connect with people more. You know, I'm able to I'm able to recognize like people's struggles, I think, and be passionate about helping people. Yeah, to be able to understand that, you know, everyone has something. Everyone has something, whether it's a loss, whether it's literally anything in the world. Everyone has something. To be able to recognize that and to put that into perspective and, you know, give that person support. I think that was the main thing. And I think it doesn't always, but it definitely can build character.
Yeah, I 100% agree, for sure. Do you ever dream about your mom?
A lot, yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about that? Maybe give us a dream you've had, if you're comfortable.
Yeah. I wouldn't say they're always great dreams. A lot of times they're not. But even like the positive dreams, it was really hard because like right after she passed away, I would have a dream of just regular day life with her, and then I would wake up.
Yeah.
And that was really hard. It was really hard. I didn't enjoy it. But one thing it did, it was a nice way to just like see my mom like active again. Like, you know, it's sometimes the only time you can like see your parent like in action is like if you close your eyes and just like imagine it. So that was nice. That was nice.
Yeah, so I actually don't have any experience with dreaming of my father.
Me neither.
I think it could be because I lost him when I was 6 years old, so I don't have so much of a memory and of a picture of him. I remember, of course, what he looks like and a little bit of his attributes and stuff about him through stories or through what I remember the little bit about. But I don't have the experience, and it's very interesting to me and very fascinating to hear when people dream about, you know, the ones that they've lost, and I find it very interesting.
Yeah. I think that I've also never dreamt about my father, and my uncles have, all his brothers have, and I have not. And I think that like I a little bit want to, but I also like don't know what I'm wishing for because I literally never have. But I definitely like throughout this podcast we've asked this question to people a lot, and sometimes people say yes. One girl like had a crazy story, and then like I listen to these podcasts sometimes like after they're posted, and I'm just like, ugh, like I really want to have a dream about my dad, and like I don't, and like obviously I'm not meant to, or I will, or I would, but it's just interesting. I don't know. Dreams are an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mentioned consolation, but do you have any books or resources or activities that have helped you during your mourning process continue to help you?
So Rivke, he recommended this book to me, The Road to Resilience by Sherry Mandel. I think it's her second book. Her first book was Blessings by a Broken Heart. It's like sort of her diary / journey through, her son, when he was 13, was murdered by terrorists in Israel and Tekoa. And so Blessings by a Broken Heart is her journey, is like in her diary really through that time. Road to Resilience is written a bunch of years later, and sort of like breaks down grief and like what she calls like her, I guess, stages, sort of. That book was really like transformative, and one of the best things about it for me is, well, there's so many best things about it, that like the sources were from all over. So it was like, I don't know, you were quoting some like psychologist, you were quoting like Baal Shem Tov, you were quoting everyone. And also like I remember like sitting down in this book and like just devouring it and like highlighting stuff, because like there was stuff that I couldn't even feel at the time, like, you know, loved for Hashem, but that I knew that I wanted to work towards. And that was so special to me. And like, I still have this book written up with all my notes on the side. I actually should take a look back at it, but it was really, one of my friends, actually, someone she knew passed away, and so she asked me what books, and like, that was the first thing I said. It's very uplifting.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm gonna need to check it out.
Yeah, honestly, it sounds pretty cool. I might have to read it.
It's also very small, so like, good read, fast.
Good.
Yeah, and also the last chapter is like, it's called post-traumatic growth. So again, taking meaning out of loss.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you've shared amazing advice with us today. So many different points, different quotes that I hope to implement in my life. And I'm sure I'm not going to talk for Anita, but I will.
you could talk
I'm
for-
sure she will too, and everyone who's listening. But is there one specific piece of advice, one, that we can take away from today?
I think it just goes back to one day at a time. You know, we never know. We don't know. We barely know anything. So to take your day and to live it, to live and to. I'm a big worrier, and I worry about
Same.
the future. Yeah. But all you have control over, all you really have control over, is today and what you do in the next minute. And that, like, helped ease so many of my worries. And it's something that I take with me and do all the time. Yeah, take every day, one day at a time. And if you need 1 minute at a time.
That's amazing. It really is. Just like everything you've said today. Thank you so much for joining us today, Tova. We really appreciate everything you've said to us today.
Thank you for having me. This is a really great opportunity. I love talking about this.
Thank you so much, Tova, and Mazel Tov on your upcoming wedding.
Thank you.
Very exciting. And you're all y'all.
And Aliyah.
I'm
Baruch Hashem.
Thank you again so much for listening to another episode of the Letter S podcast, inspiring one life at a time. Please make sure to check out our Instagram at the Letter S podcast _. If you have any questions or are interested in hopping on a mic with us, feel free to email us at the Letter S podcast @gmail.com. And as always, stay in touch.